A Mossad hit team arrived in a quiet Norwegian town carrying one name and a mission for revenge. They thought they were tracking down one of Israel's most wanted enemies, but their intel was wrong. Inside the local movie theater, a young couple watched a spy film, unaware that real spies were waiting for them. Ahmed Bouchiki wasn't their target. He was a waiter, a husband, weeks away from becoming a father. As the couple walked home, a car screeched to a halt beside them. 2 assassins jumped out. Shots cracked through the cold night air. Ahmed fell to the ground. His pregnant wife cradled his lifeless body in her arms. Mossad had just assassinated the wrong man. Within days, the world was asking, how did Israel's top spy agency make such a catastrophic mistake? The events that led to Israel's tragic mistake began 10 months earlier.
Speaking to you live at this moment from ABC headquarters, just outside the Olympic Village in Munich, West Germany. The peace of what would have been called the Serene Olympics was shattered just before dawn this morning, about 5 o'clock, when Arab terrorists armed with submachine guns went to the headquarters of the Israeli team.
The 1972 Munich Olympics were supposed to be a symbol of peace, a chance for a new, democratic West Germany to show the world it had moved past its dark history. The motto was, the cheerful games. But in the early morning hours of September 5th, that illusion shattered. 8 members of a Palestinian terror group called Black September broke into the Olympic Village. They stormed the dormitory where Israeli athletes were sleeping and took them captive. They issued an ultimatum, demanding the release of more than 200 Palestinian prisoners. For the next 21 hours, the entire world watched in horror as the standoff played out live on TV. When it ended, all 11 Israeli athletes had lost their lives. The world was shocked. Israelis were devastated. And almost immediately, Prime Minister Golda Meir made a fateful decision. Israel would hunt down everyone responsible, no matter where they were in the world. The mission had a name: Operation Wrath of God. Mossad created a small team of Israeli agents and moved them to safe houses in Europe. Each hit required a range of specialists with specific roles: 2 trained assassins, 2 bodyguards to shadow them, 2 agents to establish their covers, rent cars, and secure hotel rooms, and another group of agents in the background who gathered intel and managed communications. The team was designed for mobility and secrecy, able to strike anywhere in Europe and disappear without a trace. Within months, Mossad took out 13 members of Black September. The missions were bold and innovative. One even involved future Prime Minister Ehud Barak, disguised as a woman, with 2 hand grenades hidden in his bra. But while Mossad's campaign seemed unstoppable, one target proved extremely hard to track down. Ali Hassan Salameh wasn't just another member of Black September. He was its mastermind and a rising star in the Palestine Liberation Organization. Charismatic, connected, and ruthless, he was being groomed by Yasser Arafat as a possible successor and future leader of the Palestinian movement. Salameh wasn't your typical Palestinian militant. He came from privilege. He drove sports cars, wore designer clothes, and was often spotted with attractive women who weren't his wife. Mossad made him their top priority. For months, they tracked every whisper of his movements across Europe. But Salameh was always one step ahead and heavily protected. He traveled with a team of bodyguards between heavily fortified homes. The stakes were enormous, because Salameh wasn't just on the defense, laying low. While Mossad was busy taking out other members of Black September, Salameh stayed on offense. He struck back with daring operations against the Israelis, including a plan to assassinate the Prime Minister herself, a plan that was only thwarted at the very last minute. It was a high-pressure chess match, a make-or-break game of spy versus spy. But then, Israel caught a tip that changed everything. Mossad received word that a courier was on his way to meet Salameh somewhere in Norway. By this point, many of the elite agents who'd carried out Mossad's earlier hits were exhausted. They were given a much-needed break and replaced by a new, less seasoned crew. And that inexperience would soon prove disastrous. The agents tracked the courier to Oslo and then onto a quiet ski resort town called Lillehammer. They assumed he must be there to meet Salameh. Sure enough, they followed the courier to a small cafe where he began talking to another Arab man. A female agent slipped inside to get a closer look. She ordered a drink and, as casually as possible, compared the man's face to a photo of Salameh she carried in her purse. She wasn't convinced. The photo was grainy, the man looked different. But one of her senior colleagues was certain. This was Salame. When the man they identified as Salame left the cafe, he got on a bicycle. No flashy car, no team of bodyguards, no designer clothes. That should have been a red flag, but instead the team rationalized it. After all, Salame was a master of disguise and deception. Over the next few days, the team followed him obsessively. They watched him at the local swimming pool where one of the agents got in the water with him and overheard him chatting in French. Since they knew Salame was well educated and multilingual, they took this as a sign that it must be Salame, even though they didn't have any intel that Salame spoke French. But they saw what they wanted to see. And that's how they convinced themselves that a Moroccan waiter named Ahmed Bouchiki was in fact the Black September mastermind they'd been hunting for months. The team followed Ahmed back to his small house at the end of town and began watching him around the clock, convinced they were tracking Salame. Back in Israel, despite the shaky intel, top officials gave the green light. Ahmed's fate was sealed. In hindsight, top Israeli officials may have been distracted by a major international crisis, the hijacking of a passenger plane. With attention divided, perhaps the Lillehammer mission didn't get the proper level of oversight it deserved. And so, the agents in Norway began final preparations to take out the wrong guy. On the evening of July 21st, 1973, the agents took their positions. They watched as Ahmed and his pregnant wife walked hand in hand to the local cinema. After the movie, the couple caught a bus back toward their neighborhood. They slowly walked home from their bus stop, chatting and laughing together under the quiet summer night. They were within sight of their home when a white Mazda screeched to a stop beside them. Two agents, a man and a woman, jumped out, drew their pistols, and opened fire. Ahmed collapsed, and the female agent shot him again as he lay on the ground. His wife screamed as the agents raced back into their car and sped off into the darkness. Ahmed Bouchiki, a Moroccan waiter who had lived a simple, peaceful life in Norway, died there on the pavement. A tragic mistake in a foreign nation's covert war. If murdering the wrong man wasn't bad enough for Mossad, things were about to get even worse. What followed was a cascade of errors that would expose Mossad's secret operations and show that the new team was in way over their heads.
Over the last 18 months, a series of Arabs had mysteriously been blown up or shot dead in several European capitals. But when they came to Lillehammer, unaccountably, the Israelis left a trail of evidence behind them.
The first mistake came almost immediately. Two of the agents tried to return their rental car at the Oslo airport just days after the hit. Norwegian police were already on alert for a white Mazda, and they arrested the agents after getting tipped off by a rental car worker. Once in custody, the novice agents quickly began to unravel. Under interrogation, one panicked and revealed the location of a safe house where police arrested two more members of the team. The other agent had written down a phone number that belonged to the head of security at the Israeli embassy. When police raided his home, they found two more Mossad agents hiding inside. Within a few days, 6 agents were in police custody. Rumors spread quickly that they were part of a Mossad hit squad, and the incident spiraled into a full-blown diplomatic crisis.
It's informed the Israel embassy in Oslo. It will not be possible to release the prisoners, neither to permit anybody to visit them.
But it only got worse. One of the captured agents suffered from severe claustrophobia. As soon as the cell door closed, he broke down. Desperate to be moved to a larger cell with a window, he began spilling operational details, even sharing the name and number of an emergency Mossad contact in Tel Aviv who would confirm his identity as an Israeli operative. Rule number 1 of being a spy: don't talk about being a spy. Meanwhile, Norwegian police found a key on one of the other agents that led to a safe house in Paris. French police raided the apartment and discovered more keys to other safe houses all over the city. Suddenly, Israel realized that its entire European network of agents might be compromised. And then came the final blow. Confirmation that they took out the wrong guy. Salame was still alive. The Israeli government scrambled to contain the damage, but the story was already out. The Lillehammer Affair, as it came to be known, had exposed Mossad's covert operations and humiliated Israel on the world stage. Israel denied direct involvement, but quietly pulled back its operations in Europe, and Operation Wrath of God was shelved. Despite diplomatic pressure, Norwegian authorities went ahead with prosecution. 5 of the captured agents were convicted and sentenced to prison.
The prosecution maintained that the Israeli intelligence organization Mossad was in effect setting up its own court of law to deal with Arab terrorism. But a murder was a murder and had to be treated as such, whoever did it and from whatever motives.
As for Ahmed Bouchiki, years later his widow received financial compensation from the Israeli government. But no amount of money could replace the husband and the father that they took away. 6 years later, Mossad finally found the real Ali Hassan Salameh in Beirut. And this time, they successfully took him out. The Lillehammer Affair became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most disciplined intelligence agencies are still run by human beings, prone to bias, fatigue, and error. In the decades since, Israel has continued its policy of targeted hits, often with astonishing precision. But even today, mistakes happen, like the botched airstrike against Hamas leaders meeting in Doha.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apologized to the Emir of Qatar for the killing of a Qatari citizen during Israel's attack on Hamas leaders here in Doha.
Every time a strike goes wrong, it's a reminder that targeted assassination is an extreme measure for any state. Even when justified, it demands precision, discipline, and the ability to carefully walk a moral razor's edge. One mistake can make the difference between triumph and tragedy, justice and murder. That's why in the world of covert operations, moral clarity isn't a luxury. It's the only safeguard against becoming the very thing you're fighting.